Welcome, everyone. Today we are discussing something on the top of people's minds. If you have young adult children or you are about to, you're probably wondering, what are they going to do with their life? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be able to find a career path that is good for them, that matches their gifts and talents, and that provides a living so they don't have to live in my basement? So, this is what we're talking about today. And we are so excited because we have the perfect person to come on and talk about this topic. His name is Tyler Lafferty. He is first and foremost my friend. And so I'm going to claim that first. He is also the co-founder of 72, 144, and Strategy Labs, three nationally recognized digital creative and media buying agencies with clients including Amazon, you may have heard of Amazon, AT&T, Toyota, Nike, and many others. So for more than 25 years, Tyler also has been following his own passion of helping students dream big and discover new career opportunities through mentorship, speaking engagements, writing a book called, we're going to talk about it today, called Be More Like You, and founding an educational nonprofit called Slingshot. I love that name, and you're going to hear more about that. He's an active member of the community through leadership and philanthropy, and he lives with his family near me in Spokane, Washington. Tyler, welcome. We are so glad you're with us today.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, Tyler, why don't you just jump in by telling us a little bit of your journey and how your career path unfolded?
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to go to the University of Washington, so got out of Spokane, went 5 hours west, and got into the big city of Seattle, which was amazing. And for me at the time, I was planning on going into the FBI. I wanted to be an agent in the FBI, and I didn't really have any good basis or why that was real for me or necessary. I had done a little bit of talking with a friend. His dad was in the FBI, and it sounded interesting, right? And so the path to getting into the FBI was typical at the time. Again, this is 30 some odd years ago. It was typical. It was a political science degree and then a law degree, and then you would apply to the FBI. And so I went down that route. I started getting a political science degree, the study of government. Was I passionate about the study of government? Absolutely not. But it was a means to an end, and I'm all about like, okay, this is what you got to do to make this a reality in your life. And so I'm taking all these political science classes, and it was fine. Absolutely no passion for that, but it was fine. And I got a little farther along, probably my junior year, and started to recognize like, I don't know if this is ultimately what I want to do. And really it was about like, what if I don't get in? So if I go down this path and I don't get into the FBI, then I have a law degree. Do I want to practice law? No, not really. And so it felt very hollow. I had to kind of rethink what this was going to look like. And I remember thinking that business was incredibly general. And I'm like, well, I could make it in business. I didn't fancy myself a business minded person, but I thought, oh, I could do this. Well, as I looked back at my life and I looked at kind of the way I thought in high school and some things that like in jobs that I had as I was just mowing some lawns and doing some different things, my thoughts were very entrepreneurial, but I didn't have a construct to put that in or to think that I don't even think we used the word entrepreneurship back then really that much. And so I didn't really think of it as I was business minded or entrepreneurial, even though I absolutely was. And so I got to my junior year and I was like, I got to figure this out. And so I was like, I need advice. I need to figure out what I got to do. And I was on track to graduate early. Everyone said, oh, you got to take extra courses because you're going to drop something and you're definitely going to need those extra courses. So I did all of that and never dropped a course. And so I'm like, ooh, if I do this, I can graduate early, which I jokingly coach kids these days. Don't get out early. Stay. College is awesome. It's so fantastic. Stay as long as you can. But I was, so I'm like, well, I got to figure this out. So I went and made an appointment with the assistant dean of the business school at UW, a building I'd never walked into. I'd never taken a business class. I'd never been there. And I said, hey, this is my story, and kind of told him. And I said, what do I do? And he's like, well, I think you could, finish with a political science degree. And I said, okay. And he said, you have great writing, I'm sure, from that, analytical thinking, that'll all prove well. But you need to go and get some experience. You need to prove to businesses that this is a direction you want to go. This is what you want to do. This is what you're interested in doing. You got to build a network of people that can help you down that path, which you'll hear more. You'll hear that phrase quite a bit in the future as in our conversation. But I was just really big for me was this I feel like I can go get some good internships, show that I have some experience, and then move into the business world. And so I literally started looking to friends and whoever I knew, my own network of, hey, I need an internship, literally an internship, any internship. It could have been anything. I just wanted something on my resume to move forward. Well, divinely, I was lucky enough that a buddy of mine worked at one of the first web development companies in Seattle. It was an agency, mid-90s. The web was just getting started. So I went and worked there, sales and marketing. I wasn't designing websites. I wasn't programming. I was just sales and marketing. And I loved it. I loved that medium. I loved how businesses could connect with their customers. And so one thing, a very bright light shone that I fell in love with that industry. I loved the internet. Anything I could be a part of that, like I wanted to move down that path. That was fantastic. So that was really cool and a really bright spot for me. That internship then in turn got me another internship over my junior to senior summer, building a website for a big manufacturing company in Spokane, their first corporate website. They didn't have a website, and they said, hey, over this summer, can you help us do this? And, they said, I was very open and said, I'm not a designer. I'm not a developer. I'm a marketing person. And they said, no, we just need like project management. We have people to do those other things. And so I'm like, absolutely. Did I really know how to do that? No. But was I willing to step in and take a chance and a risk and bet on myself to know that I could learn on the job and figure it out? Yes. And so I absolutely did. And had a wonderful summer. We built the website and got it all done. And it was absolutely fantastic. So again, now I had two different things on my resume that showed that I was moving in this direction with this political science degree. But at the same time, I was building networks of people that actually saw me as a human being, thought I was actually relatively kind and smart, and like, oh, that guy adds value. And so it was helping me down that path, which in turn, once I graduated from the University of Washington with my political science degree, I leveraged that network and I came back to Spokane and got a job actually at that company that I interned at. And it was great. I worked for that company for a couple of years and like managed all of their online marketing and any more web development they were doing. And that really helped me grow in that career of getting into the internet. And I did that for multiple companies past that. Got to manage some e-commerce websites and do a lot of online advertising. And so I really understood the business of online marketing and what that looked like. So much so that along the way, I had little side hustles. I had actually created little agencies, and I had a couple of different partners that I built little small companies with. And so that was my 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. job that I did and kind of flexed that muscle, which was fun. And I love having a little bit of a side hustle. And it wasn't until about 2004 when I really was like, I want to make this my day job. I want to take this leap and try this out and see if this is a possibility. And I had a business partner who I believed in and trusted and was a really great human. And he and I, really wanted to move in this direction. So we, built the whole business plan, the pro forma financials, figured it all out. Like, all right, let's take the leap and do it. And we did. And that was 2004. And that was our first company, 7-2 that you mentioned. And we set the bar really high. People say, wow, you have all these really big, huge national, clients. This is fantastic. Was that a total surprise to you? And I'm like, no, like that was the goal. That was the plan. That was the set high. Like I tell young people this all the time, set that bar high and go after high. I would rather have you land there or a little below or even halfway below than setting that bar super low just so you could make it and not having that potential of doing something great. And I think that they need to hear that. They need to be like, oh, it's okay to set the bar high. It's okay that I set it and maybe don't even make it that way. That's okay. But setting those expectations high for yourself and believing that it's a possibility, I think is always a better, your outcomes will always be better if you do such a thing. And so that was really fruitful for us. Again, very entrepreneurial minded. As we built that business and grew, we had ideas for other businesses. That's where 14.4 came in. 14.4 partners with traditional advertising agencies who don't have a web development department. They come alongside them and say, hey, we can help you with that campaign for Nike or Google or McDonald's, and we'll build out the website, the online advertising campaign, the social campaign, whatever it is, we'll help you do that because we have all the people on staff. So we built a whole team around that. They've been kicking for 17 years. It's been great. We have a president who runs that. And then along that journey, to give you the long story long, along that journey, I started with my partner. We started goofy little side things again that were passion projects of ours. So was lucky enough that we started a gym called the Union. So yoga, spin, and TRX gyms. We started a juice bar called Method Juice Cafe, and that was some fun experiences. So kind of flexing that entrepreneurial muscle and like wanting to do things. And I think that also came from a love of our community and wanting to have cool. We were traveling the country. We were all over, and we were lucky enough to go to New York and LA and Atlanta and Seattle for work and all that. And we saw these cool things happening in other markets, and we're like, oh, we want that here in Spokane. And so, we're like, let's build it and make it a reality. And so that's, those were fun endeavors. Sold those, so we no longer a part of that, but that was a fun experience. And then we have the media buying company, Strategy Labs, and we have someone who runs that company. They basically are customer acquisition. So we help with e-commerce companies, we help with service-based companies get more customers and things like that through ads on Instagram and Facebook and Google. And it's awesome. We have amazing presidents who run that and do great work. And so my life got, I did that for years, for the last 20 years, been, doing those entrepreneurial endeavors, but now have people running those companies and I don't have to spend nearly as much time on that, which has been really fun and a blessing, and it allowed me to focus in on some of the other passions that I have in my life.
It sounds like you have, a lot of energy. Like I want some of your energy.
True. That might be true.
And you have an element of risk, because entrepreneurs
Absolutely.
have to have an element of risk. And you also have vision. And so I'm looking forward to, as we talk about how we talk to young people about their career paths, how those personality traits, not every young person has those, right? So I'm
Absolutely.
looking forward to hearing how you engage with young people who maybe meet you there and maybe some who don't. So let's get into it.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to hear, Tyler, about your book, Be More Like You, which is so interesting because we had a foreign exchange student, Marco, and Marco contacted you like a year ago and he's like, hey, Tyler, I'm reading your book. So it even speaks to European students. But tell us,
Marco.
I know, Marco, way to go, Marco.
Yeah.
But tell us about the main character and how did you create that?
Yeah, thank you, Krista. So the book is written as a novel. It's, a lot of people think of these self-help books or that kind of thing as, a businessy type book. It's written as a novel. So there's definitely a story there. And the main character's name is Rory Langford. And Rory is a college student, just happens to be his path that he's on, trying to figure himself out. He's struggling in the classes he's taking, and he's having a hard time kind of figuring out where he's supposed to go, what he wants to do, where does he apply himself. He's taking engineering classes because he'd always been told his whole life that, you're good at, taking things apart and putting things back together. And, that would be great for a civil engineer or mechanical engineer or some sort of engineering. And so, like most kids, you feel that pat on the back as you say, oh, I think I'm going to go into engineering. And people are like, yes, you should. And right. And so that feels good, that those accolades, when adults ask you that, you have a good answer and that feels good. And that can then push you down that path. And that was definitely the case for Rory. And as Rory is trying to figure this out. His mom recognizes that he's under some stress, and she says, I would like to introduce you to a friend of mine. She's a serial entrepreneur. She loves helping students. Well, she's me. I wrote myself into the book as this woman named CJ. And CJ's job is to take Rory under her wing. And Rory is really an amalgam of my son, whose name is Ryan. And that'll make sense here in a minute. Based on conversations that Ryan and I have about life and where we're going and not giving up on the dream. So Rory in the book, spoiler alert, when pressed and pushed into something I built called the ideas framework, and the I in the ideas framework is introspection. When he's doing some of this introspection and he's doing what we call industry mapping, and he's thinking big and dreaming big about possibilities, what keeps coming up for Rory is basketball. And he's, kind of timid to tell CJ that this is what he's actually interested in. I mean, how do I want to say that? That's going to sound corny, like a job in basketball. Like, how unrealistic is that? And he finally tells her, like, when I do this industry mapping, and this thing that keeps coming up is basketball. But I mean, don't you have to be LeBron James to get into basketball and to make it be a pro? And she reminds him that there is a multi-billion-dollar industry with all sorts of cool jobs that ladder up inside of basketball that make it the industry it is. And so that's a conversation that my son Ryan and I have. My son Ryan is a passionate basketball player. He's lucky enough that he's going to get to go play in college, which is amazing. But someday that there's going to be a time where he is, not playing basketball, and we talk about not giving up on the dream. And so this larger idea of doing the work to figure out all the myriad of other jobs inside of basketball across all sorts of disciplines that are in there. And you can be one of those people that wake up every single day in an industry that you love. And how amazing would that be? So the book is all about Rory's journey as he starts to uncover different things within basketball. And you start to see him reach out to people. Again, he's getting tutored and he's getting coached by CJ, and she's helping him down this path as he works the ideas framework and introspection, design, exploration, adaptability, and service. And so you see him do this work as he's trying to figure this out. And you see him reaching out and trying to get an informational interview. You see him reaching out and getting a job shadow. You see him getting an internship, and you see how this is helping him down that path as he's validating these ideas. And he's also making a network of people that can help him down this path. And really, that's what the book is about. Like the idea and the name, Be More Like You, is I truly believe these things are inside of us, and we have to honor them. We have to bring them out, and how scary that can be. And like, I don't want to tell people that I'm, passionate about X because I'm going to get laughed at, or, and for young people, that only feels exacerbated with social media and all that stuff. True or not, it just does, and it's there. And so a lot of people are scared to lean into dreaming big about these possibilities. And that's really, what we're trying to do is uncover these things and have you honor these things that are within you and start to understand them and start to see them. And once you do, is then start to, okay, what does that path look like to connect the dots to make that a reality in your own life? So it's fun. It's an easy read. There's a love interest. I'll even throw that in for some people that want to hear that.
Good.
That was my editor. That was my editor. He's like, hey, let's put this has got to go in there. But you're rooting for Rory. You want to see him, really try to figure this out and kind of what this path looks like. And in the book, I share the emails that he sends to people, and word for word, so that any young person who reads this can know, okay, that's the type of thing. We talk about in the book the questions he asks in an informational interview to better understand, is this a direction he wants to go? And so those are all in there. I have a number of resources and a whole playbook that young people can get from doing this, and can download if they, once they read the book and get it. But the idea is to work the plan, is to work the ideas framework and really start to, and I can even get into more of that if you want, but what that looks like and, the step-by-steps for young people. But most young people want to answer the question, what do I want to do with my life? They just don't know how to connect the dots. They don't know how to create a plan. And so that was my whole impetus of writing this book, was I wanted to give young people a plan that they could point to and say, well, I could do that. I can start to go down this path. Is this the path to, singular discovery? No, absolutely not. We're not trying to find the one job you're supposed to do. And this is about all sorts of cool things and recognizing these amazing talents that you have as a human being and how you can apply them in a lot of different ways. So that's really the work we do in introspection. Introspection is one of the longest parts and phases of the book because there's a lot of work that we do on ourselves, better understanding our own core skills and how we're gifted that way. Also understanding our personality and what that is and having that in the forefront so we can think about how does that apply to a potential job type that I might be interested in, and making sure that we understand that and know that. That pushes into the design phase, which is really it's designing a plan, but it's ultimately a research phase. Young people want the answer, well, I shouldn't even put that on young people. We all want the answer yesterday, right? We're in that instant gratification world, understandably, where we get things so fast and all of that. But this really is about doing the work. And I try to be very upfront with that. It takes some time and energy to do this internal work on the introspection and do all that, to do the industry mapping and better understand kind of what keeps coming up and dreaming big about that. Which I'll just say real quick, that is a huge issue for young people. Mm-hmm. I say it time and time again, the importance of dreaming big about possibilities. I think, and again, I can't put this on young people because it's human nature that we limit ourselves so quickly. And we don't, I appreciate, Alex, what you said about, taking risks and some of those things I just was lucky enough to innately have. So many young people, and I think it is exacerbated with social media. I want to throw that out there. I think that so many young people are scared to take a risk because they're scared to let people know. They're scared and they think that, everyone's going to know if I fail or if I don't get there, or for what that looks like. And as we all know, we can look back and say, well, that's where the good stuff happens. That's where we learn so much about ourselves, or that's where there's so much discovery that comes. And so when I do this work, usually whether it's high schools or colleges, what I hear time and time again is, Tyler, you helped me dream bigger and recognize I was dreaming way too small, that these possibilities are absolute possibilities and I could go after them. And you showed me how to connect the dots and make it a reality in my life and how to actually do it. I never thought possible. And if we can wake up that motivation, that like, wow, this is possible, then we start to get a little bit of a flywheel effect. We can start to build that, like, okay, this is possible. I can actually build a little bit of, momentum and motivation in this. And then they'll start to do the work to say, hey, I want to make this a reality in my life. This is really cool. I want to move down this path. Is it going to be perfect? Heck no. Are you going to learn a ton along what we call the winding path? Absolutely. And that's awesome, right? If you can have a growth mindset around what this looks like and I can learn from all these things, it can be really, really fantastic for young people. And so, Rory is the personification of that you kind of follow his journey and see this all happening and see his interactions with his coach, with his mentor, CJ, and what that looks like as he works the ideas framework and starts to figure this out for his own life.
I just think about how little time, energy, resources schools put in to this journey. And it's mind-blowing to me because our kids are taking classes. In fact, they get to college and now they're paying money to take classes. And yet there's none of this. I mean, Stanford has the design lab, but that's the only program really that is, I think, robust and developed. Most places do not have a program like this. And this is partly why I'm so excited about your work and what you're doing, because why aren't we doing this with our children? But I'm also thinking about, as you're talking, Tyler, that you're talking about dreaming big, tapping into what are they good at? And I think for some parents, maybe who have gone a more traditional route or who are like, you can do engineering, medicine, you can, or dentist, you can do dentistry, you can, right? They have this list of like accounting. Oh, yeah. Financial.
Super safe.
So, you can do these things. And that's the expectation because we're helping you go to college and you better have a good paying job. I say that in quotes, a good paying job when you get out to support yourself. That's partly why we're doing this. To make that shift can be a really unique journey for parents to flip that script in their own brains. And so how do you counsel parents, or what would you say to parents who are in that space?
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate you asking that. That's a huge issue. On both sides of the coin there, both with parents struggling with that, feeling that, and I'll get into that, but also young people feeling that pressure from their parents. I mean, I was doing this work at a local university, and kid in the back of the room raised his hand. He goes, "Can you help me on what I need to do to tell my parents I don't want to be an accountant?" And I was like, "Well, yes. I mean, let's talk about that." And so, and the answer to that is you got to put the work in to show your parents truly you know that you don't want to be an accountant. So, right? So it's going and doing some informational interviews with some accountants, learning the day in the life. What does that look like? And being able to truly say, like, that's not me. And done that. And then do the work with the ideas framework to then go figure out, well, what direction do you want? This young man was actually interested in being a teacher or being in human resources. He really wanted to help people be their best selves and help them in that. And so I was like, that's awesome, but we need to do that body of work. You need to go do some informational interviews, maybe a job shadow. You need to start to ask some people, whether it's a teacher, whether it's someone in human resources, but you need to do that. Take that body of work back to your parents and say, hey, I've done this. I've seen this. I've had these interviews. This is not for me, but I truly believe this is. I think they'll appreciate and respect that you've done the work. It's not just off the fly that this is what I do. And let's be honest, parents are well-intentioned. I mean, they absolutely want the best for their kid. And I don't ever remember my dad saying, follow your passion. I mean, it was about, hey, you need to get a well-paying job and become a tax-paying member of society, Tyler. I'm like, oh, okay. Thanks, Dad. I mean, and they just want the best for us. And they believe, and I'm using air quotes, the best for us is to be able to pay for our apartment, the rent of our apartment, and be able to put food on the table and just get a job, out of whatever post-secondary, out of high school, whether it's, you've gone into the trades or you go into college, it's just, they just want something stable. And understandably, I absolutely get that. But it does negate this larger idea that are we truly leaning into who we are as humans and getting into that type of work? Because I believe when you can find professional alignment, which is when you're truly using your core skills, your personality in an industry you love, put into your job, that's really where you find the most fulfillment. And that's professional alignment. And that's where we're helping young people try to find. That's where the good stuff is. That's where you find, purpose, fulfillment, happiness. And so sometimes, needless to say, that conversation is a little bit left out. So I try to tell parents, like, hey, you've got to give your kids some space to dream big about possibilities and work a plan like this. I've told young people, I said, if you're 22 years old and you're still waiting tables, but you're working the plan, you're having information interviews, you're moving in that direction, then I'm good. Like, keep it up. And I think what's scary for a lot of young people is this belief that I have to have it all figured out by 18. And which means if I'm going to college, I've got to pick the right major and I got to do all that. And then once I'm done, I have to have it all figured out by 22. And we all know that's incredibly unrealistic. Like you're likely not going to have it figured out then. And if you're lucky to have it figured out at 25, which, let's be honest, that's not going to happen either. But, and so I only say that to get to this. The research says that from about 18 to 28, young people are on this, what we call the winding path. And if we can be open, and I tell parents this, if you can be open to your young person on this winding path, college being a source of influence as part of that winding path, jobs and internships and whatevers in college and during the summers or whatever totally inform this. Books they read totally inform this. TikTok videos they watch. And then again, parents are like, TikTok. There's some really wonderful content on TikTok. I'm going to throw that out there. Kids are learning some really good stuff if they're leaning into it. That can be in their feed about finding jobs or all this kind of stuff. This stuff is out there. But being on this 10-year winding path of having a growth mindset, being open-minded, learning about jobs you like and you don't like, learning from bosses you like and you don't like, learning work environments you like and you don't like, that's all helping you hone in on who you are as a human being, recognizing what skills that you can employ that you're good at and that you like and it makes sense, And the research shows by about 28, 29, 30, you're really starting to hone in on that. And even the research shows that the people who do that tend to make more money than the kid who was right out of college, who picked the accounting degree, who is maybe starting to get burnout or doesn't. And again, I pick on accounting. I love my accounting. Accounting's great. If that's your thing, go do it. But research does show that those people who've since honed in on who they are, know their skills, what they're good at, they tend to do, even better and start making even more money as they move down that path. And they're more aligned with who they are as a human. But that's 10 years from 18 to 28, right? Mm-hmm. That's a long time for a parent to kind of let go and be like, all right, like she's on the winding path and I need to be okay with that. Now, do we need to be beside them and helping them and offering our networks and of, for informational interviews and those kind of things? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always tell, parents, I wrote the book for young people, but it's a really good script for parents. If parents read it and then recognize like, oh, okay, I can start asking, hey, where are you with introspection? How much do you know about your personality? What do you know about your core skills? What do you know? Did you do any, dreaming big about industries? What came up for you? And you start having more of a dialogue about it. It shows the kid that you are open and there's not that pressure, which so many young people feel from their parents about getting it right and having doing the right thing. But B, it helps them really process. And young people need the chance to process, and they need to know it's possible for these, these things that are coming up for them. And if they could just process more of that, they're going to make some mistakes. They're going to do some dumb thing. We all do. We all have it. Absolutely. But those are such wonderful learning experiences that only help you hone in on who you are as a human. So I'm all about it. Like, it's moving forward always. I'm still a plan of you have to do the work, you have to move forward. So you have to commit to it, but being open and giving yourself grace along the way, because it is a winding path.
Mm-hmm. It is a winding path. And I'm just having conversations running through my head that I've had with my older girls around things like college major decisions and internships. And I will say we have one that's just kind of fallen into something that seems like a great fit for her. And it's just God's grace that this happened. And we'll see if this is her lifetime career. But like for what she's studying, it seems to be a really good fit. And another who just kind of had to pick a major, like you just kind of have to figure. And so we have encouraged our kids. Tell me what you think about this advice. Now, while you're young and you don't have any other commitments, get a bachelor's degree. And if it's not what you do for the rest of your life, you've checked that mark off. Now, some parents may say that's not a wise financial investment, but we're not saying go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a bachelor's degree, but we're saying get a bachelor's degree because this is when you can. But that might not be right for every kid. I will also say our kids have tended to be wired for that. Sure. So when kids are in that like high school phase of trying to figure out, one, I don't know if I want to go to college. How do you guide them? And then two, I am going to go to college because I think this is probably a great time for me to do that, but I don't know what I want to major in. How do you start that conversation with them kind of in the early stages?
Sure. Good questions. Well, Alex, I'm a huge believer in something post-secondary. And that's not Tyler's opinion. That's research. Research shows that you're going to make more money and literally whatever you do, some sort of certificated degree post. And I'm a huge fan of the trades, right? We are in a trade deficit. We need more people in the trades. You can make a lot of money in the trades. So I'm a huge fan of that. If that's more about who you are as a human and it speaks to you, then absolutely go and do some informational interviews and job shadows to see if that's the direction you want to go. And remind, we started this podcast with me telling you I'm a political science major. So it tells you like I'm not, in the government. I'm not in city government or anything like that.
You should be. You should be, Tyler.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have time for that. And so I'm a huge fan of, I like to tell young people, like, it's okay to get a degree or whatever that might be. And even if it's, I don't want to pick on psychology, but I'll say it like psychology, again, if you're going to go into social work and all that, but in general, let's say that interests you, like it's okay to get a degree and still be searching, be building your network, be, talking to people, be doing informational interviews. Where this is all going to go back to is if we're lucky enough to catch young people before college or in their first year of it, and we can have them do some of this work like introspection, and really start to then go do some work and validate, explore these ideas of, is this something I want to do? And they start to get that validation, like, yeah, I just talked to somebody about this for 60 minutes and I was just enamored with what they did on a day-to-day basis. That totally sounds like me. Okay, well, let's start unpacking what those majors are to move in that direction. The earlier we can get people to do that, young people to do that, the better. Now, motivation matters. And I'm not saying, great, let's start this when they're 12 years old, because I've just found it's hard to get a 12-year-old to really care about this and be motivated to have those conversations. 17, 18, you start to get a little more like, ooh, the real world's around the corner, and I need to start to figure out this a bit more, and the motivation comes. So again, I think the more we can start to better understand what lights us up, what excites us, what are the job types that leverage our personality type and our skill sets, the more we can do that, the more that's going to inform what we might want to study. And then let's just say we pick something and it's not the right thing. Well, whether you change and try to do something else, that's okay. But even if you graduate with something like a political science degree, you're still going to make it work. You're still going to figure it out. You're still going to get a job and build. And if you keep working and do the exploration and you keep working the ideas framework, you're going to move it forward in a positive way. And you're going to hone in on who you are and what you're about. And whether or not you exactly use that college degree doesn't matter. I still think we're in a world, and I think it's changing, but I think we're in a world where a college degree, if you decide to go to college, that matters. College degree does still matter. And as an employer, I'll say that. And so there is value in being able to show that you went through this. Do I want you, like you said, Alex, to go spend hundreds of thousands to do that? No, of course not. I want you to be super conscious of that and be careful about what that looks like for your own situation. But I do believe that having, like I said, a post-secondary certification of some sort, 2-year, 4-year trades, it's very, very important. And the research shows that you'll be better off and make more money. And even still, you can make changes post that, right? Mm-hmm. You go into the trades and you do it for 2 or 3 or 4 years and you're like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. But maybe you decide, well, I wouldn't mind owning a company that does this. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to get a business degree or something. And I'm going to go, learn more about that. I'm going to learn about marketing. I'm going to learn about finances so that I can, either buy or start a company like that I can then do that in the trades because there's still, huge demand. Absolutely. More power to you. And maybe you're more inclined to be that business-minded person than you are to be the person, working a wrench or, or an electrician or something like that. And so I love that we are we're getting to this place where we're more open to these trades opportunities and things like that because they're absolutely necessary. And kids are seeing that, hey, I can still, this isn't and I'm using air quotes again, waste of money by getting this degree. It's still going to be valuable. It's still going to be useful. I still can utilize this to find some sort of a job that I'm not stuck in. I think we need to change that. And most parents know this these days, but we're not in the time of like do the same thing for the next 30 years, right? That's totally gone. And so we're not trying to find the one thing that you're supposed to do and you're going to go work for the telephone company for the next 30 years. That's gone. But we have to be open to that winding path. And if we can change our mindset and have that growth mindset to learn all along the way and be open to that, then you're going to go do good things. You're going to keep networking. You're going to keep finding possibilities. You're going to keep trying to learn things. And what you do at 22 is likely different than what you do at 25 is likely different than what you do at 30 or even 35. And that's okay. I think we have to normalize that being okay and that changing and learning and growing is just part of the long-term journey.
Mm-hmm. I like what you're saying too about the initiative piece, that there's freedom and there's also personal responsibility. There's both, right? There's freedom to kind of go on your winding path, and there's personal responsibility to initiate, to do those job shadows, to find the internships, to network for the internships through your parents or through their friends or whomever, and so there's the twofold, which I think is important. Okay.